Another Monday, another Raw. We were subject to some more Uso v Punk kind of shenanigan. It does feel like in a lot of these feuds, like he is just kind of barking kind of at his opponent while his opponents are making really clever points and estimates or on his character, right? Like CM Punk in this promo, poking fun at Jay, making fun of him, pretending to run back his music, you know what I mean, saying that he couldn't yeet himself out of this situation, which did eventually spark the intensity that you would see in Jay when he would be against Gunther and stuff like that towards the end of the promo. But I do feel that in this character morphing that they're kind of trying to do with Jay to make him more, I guess, serious and legitimate, I do hope that they use this opportunity between him and Punk as a real big character point for him and not just another like bloodline mishap where he just kind of curses out Jimmy and Roman or whoever decides to involve themselves. If they really want to kind of continue with Jay Uso and make this situation work, it's gonna come down to kind of those character moments in after the matches and during promos for him, because that's personally where I think he shines. He does what he needs to do and gets the job done, and he's also great at riling up the crowd, which he did do in this Punk against Punk in his own promo, which Jay knows how to do uniquely as a kind of that party guy. But I think once again the intensity that Jay has does kind of clash with that personality that he does have, I think. And I think that's kind of where I think they're trying to take the story in an interesting direction to maybe have himself at odds with that. I think CM Punk kind of alluding to the little Roman comments and stuff like that is supposed to essentially point towards Jay having a kind of a crisis of identity and maybe not being able to defeat Punk for the title. That'd be an interesting thing to start to kind of take on. I think we do then need more, just backstage segments of Us just kind of not coming out to the crowd and eating, but having those brooding moments more and giving more context to his character so it doesn't feel like he's legitimately just a mascot. The whole Gunther story was supposed to be essentially him getting or breaking out of that mold. Yes, he did find Yeet, but at the same time it was his endearment and his energy, right, and his passion for wanting to become a great single stars paired with the context of him breaking away from the bloodline and being that initial person who had the intuition about Sammy and had the intuition about what Roman was really becoming. For him to then be able to become a star on his own, right, is great. And I think the whole Gunther feud, while obviously there were a lot of missteps and it kind of felt kind of very fast tracked, you know what I mean, in terms of the events that happened leading up to that moment, we're here now. I'm trying to now, I guess, innate the audience with a high level storyline or a more complex version of Jey Uso is interesting if they are truly actually going for this. I hope that this isn't just a side note necessarily to keep the world heavyweight title warm for whatever they want to do with the Vision, because I think it would be really boring if we have either a no contest or simply just a Vision kind of stoppage or something like that, especially if they were to come out Braun and Bronson and then there's a fatal 4-way for the title or some crazy 6-pack match or some ladder match that is done at a later date with kind of everyone involved, because then it does kind of feel like there is no necessary, the repercussions of not having them in the battle royal is so pointless if they kind of invade and do something at Saturday night's main event during that world heavyweight title match. But we'll kind of see what happens with the Vision with that. I think more of the focus is kind of on Jay right now, since he's kind of back in the spotlight and has another world heavyweight title kind of defense to worry about. And I mean, they've been putting a spotlight on Jimmy as well on these past couple of SmackDowns and kind of his struggle with Drew McIntyre. So it does seem like they're going to have multiple factors that kind of play into this CM Punk Jey Uso match. Unfortunately, I do feel like while in person and crowd reaction I think favors Jay in terms of him being fun, it doesn't feel like people are necessarily engaged in what he's saying if it's not something to further entice people to eat. A lot of times he'll even be saying guys, don't eat yet, let me get the point across, but they just are too excited to even really listen to what he's saying, you know? So I think that's a genuine problem that WWE has to kind of manage in terms of like how they want him to progress as a character, and especially if they want to walk this fine line with kind of having him adopt more of the heelish tactics of his you know, his cousin Roman, because, you know, just like with Roman, that was like a very fine line that kind of required this whole bloodline, Heyman and them kind of, you know, having this grand plan of a story essentially to justify the narcissism and craziness of Roman's character now, right? And it's like Jay kind of needs more of that context besides the initial context of breaking away from that abusive mold, you know? And I think that hopefully with CM Punk and him kind of going at it at Saturday night's main event, there's more of like a there's a more significant story for Jay going into this and into the year. It isn't just a footnote and a CM Punk stepping stone so that CM Punk can just run with the title for a bit. I do think most people want CM Punk to win, but I do think in how it's done, Jay Uso is the one who actually needs everything from this. And I feel like moving forward, if we do get a big significant story moment for Jay Uso there, I can see why, you know, we kind of had this storyline so far of this power vacuum in Seth like leaving, and then maybe Jay Uso is the person who tries to actually assume that role, maybe not for the Vision, but tries to rebuild his bloodline, you know, now that he has the world heavyweight title. And I think that would be a very cool and significant ending maybe for Saturday night's main event, in a turn of events, if possibly, you know, we had a Jay Uso heel turn to beat CM Punk, to overcome Punk, maybe at the help of Jimmy or Roman, who really wants to facilitate that change in Jay as well. So let me know what you guys kind of think about that whole thing. I think it would be an interesting thing to happen for Jay and make everything kind of happening with Jay more interesting and get people intrigued into what he's saying instead of how he's eating.